Every year there's one document that drops in the business world that's treated less like a report and more like a masterclass. And that's Warren Buffett's annual letter to Berkshire Hathaway shareholders. So today, we're going to unpack the 2024 edition and pull out some of the absolute gems from decades of wisdom. Right from the very beginning, Buffett sets the tone. See, this isn't just about the numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about a mindset. He's making a promise to treat shareholders like true partners, giving all of us a rare, unfiltered look into the thinking at one of the most successful companies on the planet. So what is that mindset? Well, it all boils down to one thing: thinking like an owner. Buffett says their goal is to talk to shareholders as if the roles were completely reversed. Like if you were the CEO and he was just a quiet investor trusting you with his family's future. It's such a huge shift from the usual corporate jargon we hear. And when you think like an owner, you start to ignore all the noise from Wall Street. In a world that is just obsessed with this quarter's earnings, Berkshire is playing a different game. Their horizon isn't months, it's decades. And that gives them this massive advantage, right? They can make decisions for real long-term value, not just short-term hype, focusing on what their businesses actually earn, not the crazy, unpredictable swings of the stock market. Okay, so having a long-term philosophy is great, but it only works if you have the right team to execute it. So how on earth does Berkshire manage this huge, sprawling collection of businesses without getting totally bogged down in bureaucracy? Well, it all comes down to one thing: finding and then truly trusting the right people. So let's dive into this, because Berkshire's approach to leadership is, well, it's unlike pretty much any other company out there. They go for character over credentials, and believe me, the results are absolutely fascinating. To really get this, Buffett tells a story that, honestly, sounds almost unbelievable in today's world. It's all about how Berkshire bought Forest River, a huge manufacturer of RVs, and how they found its CEO. And that's it. That's the entire process. I'm not kidding. No army of lawyers, no months of painful due diligence. Buffett gets a fax, makes a couple of calls, and a week later, they're shaking hands on a deal. He even let the owner, Pete Leigel, value his own real estate and, get this, name his own salary. It was a deal built completely and utterly on trust. And boom, this is what happens when you lead with trust. Pete Leigel could have asked for millions, easily, but instead, what does he do? He looks up Buffett's salary and asks for less. That single moment told Buffett everything he needed to know. This was the right kind of partner. Someone who cared about the culture, not just about lining their own pockets. So here's the crucial point. Berkshire bets on innate talent and character, not on fancy credentials. Buffett says flat out that he never even looks at what school a candidate went to. He points to people like Ben Rosner, a total retailing genius who only had a 6th grade education. For Berkshire, what's in your head and in your heart is so much more important than what's on your resume. Okay, so you have this philosophy of long-term ownership, and you build a team based on trust and raw talent. So what does the company they've built actually look like? How is this thing structured to just keep on growing? All right, let's look under the hood at the Berkshire engine itself. The structure is actually pretty simple, but it is incredibly powerful. It grows in two very distinct but complementary ways. So on one hand, Berkshire buys entire companies, lock, stock, and barrel. We're talking massive operations that they control completely, like the BNSF Railway or Geico Insurance. But on the other hand, they buy fractions of other amazing businesses by purchasing their stocks on the open market. This lets them own a piece of world-class companies like Apple and Coca-Cola, which, let's be honest, are never going to be for sale outright. Now, the secret sauce that fuels this entire engine is something called insurance float. And it's a pretty simple idea, really. People pay their insurance premiums up front, right? But Berkshire might not have to pay out any claims for years. In all that time in between, they get to invest all that money for their own benefit. And the scale of this is it's staggering. At the end of 2023, Berkshire was holding $171 billion of this float. Think about that. It's like having this giant, low-cost pool of capital, a war chest, really, that they can use to buy more great businesses. This is the financial core of the whole company. So you put this philosophy, these people, and this business model all together, and what do you get? You get one of the most remarkable stories in corporate history. It's an incredible story of transformation over 60 years.
I mean, just look at this contrast. It's night and day. When Buffett took over in 1965, Berkshire was just a dying textile mill in New England. It was, in his own words, headed for the ash can, paying zero income tax. Fast forward to today, and that same company pays more corporate income tax to the U.S. Treasury than any other business in the entire country.
And the financial results of that journey, it's almost hard to wrap your head around. A compounded annual gain of nearly 20%, year after year for almost 60 years. That is the mathematical definition of creating wealth on an epic scale. And here's Buffett's own explanation for that incredible number. It's not some complex financial wizardry. It's actually a really simple formula, a culture of constantly saving and reinvesting your earnings, combined with what he calls the relentless, unstoppable magic of long-term compounding. Now, that magic formula built an absolute empire. But after 60 years of that kind of success, you'd think maybe the best days are behind them. You'd assume they have to slow down, right? Well, the letter makes it very clear that's not how they see it. Not at all. And even though Berkshire is a deeply American company, it's increasingly looking outside the U.S. for new opportunities. And a perfect example of this is its big and still growing investment in 5 of Japan's largest trading houses. Buffett loves their business model. It's actually pretty similar to Berkshire's, and he admires their shareholder-friendly attitude. It's a clear signal that the hunt for value is now a global one. And the letter ends on this really provocative thought. At an age when most companies would be considered old and mature, Buffett argues that Berkshire is actually more youthful today than when it started. I mean, that challenges the whole idea of a corporate life cycle, suggesting that if you have the right philosophy, the right people, and a long-term mindset, the story doesn't ever have to end. For Berkshire, it feels like a whole new chapter is just getting started.